Hi, everyone. This is Tom Grisak with the Grisak Group Realtors. We're based up here in Allen, Texas. And we have two people today that I really have been looking forward to interviewing because they're such a major part of the industry and our business. And we deal with inspectors all the time. So although we can't, tell someone who to use, we have to provide a list of people that we might encourage our buyers or sellers to use. This is a company that I've always put on the list. And this is Mark and Anita Kissee. Thank you guys so much for coming out and visiting with us. I promise you I could spend an hour just asking you questions. So we're going to try to keep it rolling because I do have some major questions for y'all that have been coming up and we're seeing now. And I know you guys are pros. So I'm going to leave those answers to you and just maybe ask you, well, what would happen if, and then we'll just talk. Let's talk about your business first. How long have you all been in business?
Tom, first of all, thanks for having
Sure.
us. And thanks for allowing us to be part of your team for your
Sure.
clients to serve them. Looking back, actually, it was 16 years since we had our license, 17 years working in getting the license,
Right.
and 30 years before then actually in construction.
Okay. And have you always worked as a team, you two?
Yes,
Anita?
and we're still laughing.
Yeah, and still talking. Yeah.
That has its own challenges, as you
It
know.
does. It
Yep.
does. Ron and I did it for a long time ourselves, and it can be stressful. But you guys are so good. I like to tell this kind of as a half joke. We a lot of times, if you're the listing side, you don't have any control of who the inspector is going to be. So when I'm got a home listed and the inspection's getting set up, I'm always asking the buyer agent, or sometimes we'll just get notified who it is. And if I'm representing a seller, my reaction is, damn, it's Kissee.
I've heard that before.
Because I know you guys are so thorough. And I know that you'll address a lot of things that you're going to take the time to address things that other inspectors might not. But if I'm representing buyers, you're always on the list because I know you're thorough and you take care of your clients. How much room do you have as far as what you could walk through a home and probably pick out 1,000 things that you see, but don't really, maybe cosmetic issues or minor things. And how much leeway do you have as far as when you do an inspection about what you pull up?
Well,
What you address?
if you're looking at the SOPs, and I'm looking back on the people who've tried to come on board with us and other seasoned inspectors per se with different companies, I'm seeing that they're really not following the TREC SOPs as we're supposed to. Case in point, the SOP says the floor covering is a covering, but however, if it's loose carpeting and someone can trip and fall, you're in a place of litigation for that injury, for that medical or worse. So, yes, let's put it in there. If it's a brand new house and they're all concerned about the paint, no, we're not getting into that. If it's the client is an engineer and they definitely want something like the fencing noted in the report, well, we're going to take care of them. That's outside of the SOPs. However, because we hold multiple licenses, if that neighborhood, that home, or the neighboring properties have a pool because of case history where two children got through the fencing that was dilapidated as dad's watching the kids and took a nap on the couch, those two children are no longer here with us. This was a case about 6 years ago down in Houston. They got through to the neighbors. The toddlers got in the pool yes. So we got to be looking out for the care of the client as well as the care, because everyone's going to get subrogated. We want to take care of the community.
Right.
If I take care of the community, we take care of the community as a team, then word of mouth, and they're going to have there's family, there's kids growing up, there's others.
Right.
So that's kind of a long answer.
How many inspectors are there in the Collin County? Do you have any idea?
I have no idea. Last time when I was at a meeting for the inspector committee for Collin County, the numbers were around $3,500 for the
Okay.
state.
That's a lot. Yeah.
It seems like a lot, but when you take a look and when you go to some of these meetings and conferences, unfortunately, they're like me. They either got gray hair or they have
Mhm.
no hair. We don't see a lot of young ones coming into this, so
Right.
we're encouraging a younger generation to come in.
Right.
It is work. I've had ride-alongs that champions sent over to me, and they don't make it because they
Mhm.
see it's not just a
Yeah.
checkbox
It's
type.
work.
It's work.
You have to, at times you got to get under the homes. You got to look to see what's there. You got to get in the attic. You got to get in tight spots. I have a lot of respect for inspectors, and honestly, it's a profession. I think you just can't go in part-time. It's got to be your job. How quickly can you get to a job when someone calls you or an agent calls you?
Well, it's amazing how we will work the schedule. We'll help people as best they can, but the short answer is within 48 hours.
Okay,
Um,
excellent.
if we have schedule changes, we'll move people up. We'll offer it. Obviously, if it's a veteran agent with us, a loyal, been with us a
Right.
while, we're gonna make it happen however we can. We
Right.
do the very best. We under promise and
Right.
over deliver.
Right. We try to do the same
yeah,
thing.
we do that.
How much of your business comes from realtors versus just people that find you by Googling you?
That's interesting you bring that up, only because we're seeing a shift in that. It's always a large piece of the pie is from realtor partners. And I say partnerships because we are a team.
Mhm.
I actually correct the agents when they say use us because I'm like, please don't use us. We're part of your team. We're an extension of you.
Mhm.
And that seemed to have worked well. But in summation, is still a large piece of the pie, if you will. We've spent a lot of monies on SEO, search
Mhm.
engine
Right. Sure.
optimization, and we were getting more Google searches, and we're high rankings. If you check us out, please check us out
Yeah.
in Sherman, Frisco area, Krugerville, Aubrey. We've spent a lot of resources in
Right.
those areas for the SEO, but we're seeing a drop of the Google searches because Google has changed, one
Right.
change in their algorithm
That's
and
exactly
it's
right.
out the door.
Yeah.
So again, I'm talking to my team. We're having to switch over to do more of a partnership, just get more creative on
Right.
social media.
Right.
It's been difficult going to the office. Everything's just shifted.
Yeah.
So
I'm just guessing, but I would think your focus should be with realtors because we're
correct.
as buyer agents and selling agents when our need comes up for an inspection, they're the ones that usually are trusted by the client to
Right.
say, who do you want to use? And again, we can't just say use them, they're great. We've got to always offer a couple of people. What were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say at one time it was probably around 20/80, with
Okay.
the 80 from the Realtors, 20
Okay.
from the Google search. But
Okay.
once again, Google changed their algorithms on their SEOs.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
But two, we do get, which is a blessing and is humbling, we get a lot of repeat clients, and we get a lot of clients who tell their family members.
Right. Well, you ought to go to I haven't been to your site in a long time, but I know it's a good, maybe 6 months, but I know it's very thorough, talks about what
Yes.
you do. You've got an excellent Google reviews, 5-star, which is tough, and especially in your business when it's tough to make everybody happy,
It's impossible.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
like Elvis Presley.
yeah,
Yeah. You can't make everybody happy.
right. Okay, I want to talk about one case that I had. We had a home that went under contract 4 different times.
hmm
And every time it went under contract, it fell out either on financing or it was never on the condition of the homes. They got cold feet. They found a home they liked better. But every one of those, the first 3 inspections, they found something. The inspector found something. And the seller said, look, I'm just going to go ahead and do it. And then next time it comes on the market, we'll be ready. And then we always encourage the clients. I don't know if the law requires it, but we always tell our seller clients, give them the inspection report, and then we don't want to rely on it, but give it to them if they ask, and then do your own inspections. So in this case, every time they did inspection, they found something, they fixed it. They got to the fourth inspection with the fourth buyer, and he found something that the first three inspectors missed. And it was a pretty major, it was a component up in the, over the patio, a beam. So my question is, are there things that you are required to address by the real estate commission? And after that, how much leeway do you have to maybe address something, or do you just address everything that you see? What's your
As an
protocol?
inspector and as a person, as someone who's looking out for the client, whoever, as if they're Jesus himself, you can do the best you possibly can. Now, the SOPs are somewhat vague in some areas, and it is inspected, not present, not inspected, deficient.
Right.
What constitutes deficient? The SOP, once again, is not always clear on things. Let's say that was a big beam, lamb beam or cedar beam, and it wasn't sized dimensionally proper for the weight load to transfer to ground. That's something that's beyond the TREC's requirement. However, me or somebody else may see that with enough knowledge, history of construction and or engineering. Case in point, I've got a 27,000 square foot I've been on for 3 years now. The client wants me there every other week as this house is being built. I've got
Wow, that's incredible. I've never heard of anything like that.
it's we can talk off record more, but we've got a house that I'm going to be heading back to this morning. Well, after this podcast, the client's friend is an engineer that was on the last nuclear facility that was built here, and he was highly impressed with our work. This was a framing inspection.
Good for you.
And it's very humbling, but it comes down to how much schooling does the inspector have under their belt. Unfortunately, I'm in disagreement with the Texas Real Estate Commission on lowering the standards. Back when myself and some of my fellow colleagues went through the training requirements under TREC, it was like 455 hours before we could even go take our PROC exam. Now it's down to like 190 something. There's no way for all the different styles of structures that are out there that you can get enough training to even fulfill the SOPs, let alone, let's say, I've got a lamb or cedar beam, I got a 2x4 used where it shouldn't be.
Yeah. In a lot of ways, you've got an impossible task. You're walking through within 3 or 4 hours trying to assess the condition of a home, and you don't know what's behind the walls. You don't know how the whole home was built. So you can only do your best in what you see. But do you, like cosmetic issues, that normally you wouldn't? Okay, good.
No.
You're more interested in structural or safety
It's going to be
related.
MEPS, the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and structural. And in there's always going to be fire and safety.
Okay.
It has to be.
Right.
It's a requirement. Just like the fencing is not required on a SOP under TREC to be in the promulgated form. However, if I do have a pool there and some children get into the pool because there's not proper fencing and closure around that pool and alarms, then I'm guilty of failure to warn.
Yes.
To failure to notify, and a lawyer may want to subrogate both agents and the brokerage firm. So
Now, I've had inspections that lasted incredibly an hour, and I've had inspections that have lasted 4 to 5 hours, and it's not necessarily dependent on the size of the home. I think, I don't know what levels of inspections there are, or what are the classification. Are all once they're an inspector, they're an inspector, or there are degrees of professionalism that you all meet?
Under TREC, there's the apprentice, there's a real estate inspector, and a professional inspector.
Okay.
Those to me are just titles. I heard an old boy one time, 17 years ago, say, well, it's going to take about 5,000 homes before the inspector really knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I thought it was either 5,000 or 10,000, and I thought he was nuts. What I have seen in this business is many inspectors come to us. We take them in the field. They've been with another company, and they're not really following the SOPs. They're not trained properly. And it comes down to if they're teachable, we can train them, whether they're with us or not.
Yeah.
Rule of thumb for us is, and keep in mind, like my lead inspector's former SWAT, and we can go through and assess the situations and get the information and then consolidate it later. But the rule of thumb is basically 1 hour per 1,000 square feet.
Okay, well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me. 5,000 square foot home, 5 hours. That sounds about right.
Yeah, but like if we had a season here a couple of years ago where a whole month or 6 weeks was 10,000, 12,000, 15,000. We get into these larger properties. We want to respect the seller, so we're bringing in multiple inspectors. I have worked with a software company where we can amalgamate the reports. We can come in a few hours. Every member has gathered what the information is that they're supposed to be gathering. I'll oversight and see, and we'll cross our T's and dot our I's, and we're able to return that home back over to the seller instead of being there for 2 days.
Right. And then do you ever bring in someone that's maybe an expert on pools, and you say this is one you're probably going to need, you guys need to look at, or do you do everything yourself?
Well, recently we went and got certified. The state now allows us to use the sewer cam, so we do sewer
I was going to
cam.
talk to you about that.
Yes, and I've flown the drones and used those, but what I have found, there's nothing that replaces getting on top of the roof.
Yeah, I wondered about that.
Yeah.
How close you can.
Yeah, I like to see really
Sure.
what's going on.
Right.
And not only that, but like in some areas, it's a no-fly zone, so that doesn't do you any good.
I just got certified, FAA certified to fly by drone, and I'm very aware of those restrictions. You probably wouldn't have them because you're not, the rule of thumb is 400 feet you go up, and you're not going to go up 400 feet on it. But I would think that you have to be stepping on the roof to feel how secure it is, and if it's a solid foundation, a solid structure, and you can't do that from a drone.
Now, if you have terracotta tile and something like that, then yes. And then the other thing too, we see, I'm now a level 2 thermographer, so we went and spent lots of money for that training and for that camera, and that's some years ago now. And people say all the time, well, you can see through walls. You cannot see through walls. And we see, when I say we, I'm talking about me and the fellow colleagues who are experienced at this. We'll see them doing showmanship of all these rainbow colors. Well, that's good for sales showmanship. But let me ask you this, Tom. When the peace officer is after a convict that's on the run, what color palette are they using?
What color what?
What color palette is that infrared camera using?
I would imagine it's black and white.
Absolutely. The black and white palette is going to show you right off the bat what's going with the proper environmentals. So, we find things all the time. So
that is a service that you provide. Is it an extra cost?
Yes.
All right. Let's talk about.
Can I add
yeah.
something?
Go ahead, Anita.
On the service side, you asked. It really comes down to the client and the realtor. How if they're comfortable, they have a pool inspection company they want to bring. Great. We usually assess with Mark, because he's the master inspector. What do you think on the roof or this property? Because we're talking a larger property. Then we may farm it or sub it out to a pest control company and so forth.
Right.
So
just like on the commercial jobs. We're getting a team together.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
If you see something that's maybe at your limits of what you can address, you bring someone that's all they do is inspect.
Yes, we put the client first.
Okay.
That's bottom line.
And when someone calls in, let's say I haven't been recommended by anybody, I just called in and say I want an inspection on my home, it's 4,000 square feet. How detailed do you have to go into on that order? Do you want to do cast iron? Do you want us to see if there's cast iron there? Do you want us to do a pool inspection or septic inspection? You ask them on the front end, and then a lot of times they probably don't even know. They may not have even heard of cast iron, which we're going to talk about in a little bit.
Well, I'm glad you asked that because when we got our home inspected, nobody explained anything to me. I was like, well, here you go, hire this one. And I'm like, I had no clue what home inspection was. First home. So I made that a resolve in me that whoever called, we were going to set the expectation. We were going to be a tour guide, if you will, that we were the experts to help them through it. It's stressful enough. So I've been very adamant with myself and my team to say the same thing, that first of all, thank you for calling, and thank you, Mr. Agent, for referring us. So, and just explain the process. And I even tell them this may not be your first home, but we just want you to know what to expect from us. And then go into what, we look at everything: roof, foundation, structure, grading, drainage, all that stuff. And then it answers a lot of their questions, because the best service is if they don't have to if they don't have to ask any questions. Just look at Disney, Trump hotels, all the finer hotels. They answer the question before the client even has to think about it. So that's kind of where my thinking goes. But as far as the other ancillary services, we don't ever push, it's not a pressure thing, but we just explain to them, for your informational purposes, if you'd like to get infrared scanning, then this is what it is. Sewer scope, this is what it is.
Right.
So,
And one of the things you would ask, I guess, when they call you, you'd maybe look up their home, find out the age of the home.
yes,
see
we
where
have all that information. Yes.
Okay. See
And
where it is, if they have a history of that area of certain problems.
Yes, we know ahead of time. And then we're also asking, do you have any concerns about this particular property?
Yeah.
Or was there anything on the seller's disclosure? And a lot of times they say no, but then they start going into a list.
Yeah.
And then we're noting it.
I forgot to mention there's this little crack up there, and I don't know
Yes.
what that's all about. And you get out there, and the wall's
Yes.
falling down.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So you got a base price for an inspection, and that would cover what is required by TREC.
It's your maps. It's going to be your structural and the things that fall there under, which is your grading and drainage, roof covering, roof attic structure, your windows, your doors, of course, your walls, interior and exterior. Your if I didn't say foundation, it's going to be the foundation. It's going to be your electrical, your service entries, and your branch electricals. And there's a smorgasbord, and then you're going to get into plumbing, supply, HVAC.
Okay.
One thing is not required is your ancillary services, such as lawn and irrigation system. That is one of the 4 only licenses involved in a residential property. A few years ago, they became licensed under TCEQ. It was required to be licensed. So that is not required. Pool's not required. Going into the sewer line's not required.
Yeah.
Uh,
A lot of the most costly repairs might be in an area that isn't required by TREC.
Which is why the old boy who taught me was, you run plenty of water. Keep flushing the toilet. Keep an eye on it.
Right.
Now, we do a lot of high-end homes, a lot of high-end properties. So large square footprints. So our team knows that we're going to hit the wet zones at a zone at a time. We're not just turning our back on it. We can still be doing outlets and windows and doors in that section of the home. But our purpose is to load the electrical up, load the plumbing up, load the HVAC up, because we want to see if it's performing or not. So many times we've gone in to a home, case in point, where it's nice and cool, but you shut things off. You balance out, you turn on the heat, let's say, you load up the heat in the house, and then you balance out and turn on the cooling, and you find out it's not cooling. It's been vacant for some time, and it's had time to keep the house cool, but it's not performing like it's supposed to be.
Right.
But the plumbing's the same thing. We had a talk with an agent up near the Red River, and they had a family who closed and moved into a home on the 4th quarter. This is a couple of years ago now. And come Christmas time, they had family members over, and all of a sudden they're having a plumber and their plumber's friend come over to do emergency repairs on plumbing backup. And it was cast iron, and the bill was like $40,000 to fix that.
Oh, yeah.
Of course,
Ouch.
it's Christmas time and it's overtime.
Well, honestly, we've been involved with some homes that had a cost right in that area.
Okay.
So $40,000 does, and these aren't $1 million homes either.
No,
Some of
that's
these
just a small home.
right. So that's one of the things that I specifically want to address, and we can do it right now.
Okay.
Because it has hit us a couple of times, and our clients did the right thing and went ahead and replaced it. But let's find out first, how do you detect it? How do you? Is that just something that if someone asked you to do to scope it, obviously you do it, but what if they don't ask to be scoped? Do you offer it or tell them about
Well,
it?
here's one thing that's really quick on my mind here. On the 7.6 promulgated form that inspectors are required to use, it does ask what type of piping it is, at least on my part. I'd have to go back to the 7.2 16 years ago, but I set everything up according to how this SOP was and what I'm seeing as a builder contractor and a client. So, case in point, if I'm seeing cast iron piping and I'm seeing plastic piping, I'm going to put in there as cast iron and plumbing and, metal. Sometimes it's galvanized piping on the supply side. You may have a combination. Answer to the drain lines being cast iron, you may see the cast iron risers in the front flower bed, or you may not. On older homes, too, you're not going to have any clean outs at your wet zones, which are currently required. So there's nothing there. So that's something we like to give as information. If the client wants to have a sewer scope done, of course, that's going to be visual and we're going to know it.
Right.
On the newer homes, they're all going to be PVC.
Right.
But case in point, just this week, I think it was Monday, we had a 1980s home, and I was really surprised that it had cast
Yeah,
iron.
because that cast iron started going away in the early 80s.
Early 80s.
Yeah.
And this was like an 82, 83 home, and the buyer's agent was there, and she pulled up on her smartphone the repair contract for like $5,200, showing that there was some repair work done. Well, when I put my scope in, we're going from the risers, the service risers, to the tie-in at the city.
All right.
That's what our contract is. But
Okay.
we tried to get all the extra, and if I have a directional going underneath the house, I will go underneath the house as far as I can possibly go. And long story short, Tom, the two risers were, 2 foot there of new PVC, and out in the yard was about a 15-foot section of PVC. Everything was cast iron. It was scaled up so bad. Let's just say that there was residual stuff stuck to the inside of the pipe, and they terminated contract.
Yeah.
There had been foundation repairs done, and they were saying the plumbing was fixed.
Yeah.
The plumbing.
But we wouldn't have known that without the sewer scope.
Right.
If you're moving in and you're looking at your dollar factors and your repair factors and your ROI, and you can handle that type of situation, fine. But if you can't, you as the agent, you're a hero for having
Pointing that out.
Pointing that out.
Yeah.
And with that little fee right there, just saved
Yeah.
$40,000-$50,000 on that particular.
Yeah, it's amazing because now there is technology, what I'm going to ask you about.
Okay.
I'm sure you know. You physically have to get under and dig. And imagine a home getting down where, it'd be a small guys that would be able to do it to get in there, but you got to physically go down, dig underneath. And
I've seen it done.
I have too. And it's really, I wouldn't do it. I mean, it's
No.
It would scare me to death to be down underneath the home like that. But that's how it has to be done, and it's very labor intensive. And I've seen them done in 2 to 3 days, and they've got the problem resolved. But those are the big issues that we want to warn our clients about. You don't want to buy a $500,000, $600,000 home that was built in the 70s, and then you've got a $50,000 repair.
I'll say too, to a point to Mark that Mark just made. With all these flips you're seeing in Plano, I had a client that looked at a lot of them. You will see in almost all cases with these flippers that they say the cast iron's been replaced, and they will provide a receipt, like the example he used. But the receipt is almost always sub 10,000. If you see a receipt on a home that's below like 30. They did not replace the whole thing.
That's a very good point.
I don't know. Like, I've talked to plumbers that do it at a very good rate, and they're still charging a minimum of 40,000 for a whole home, even if it's like 2 bath with like a wet bar or something.
Yeah, we're going to be. By the way, we are going to be doing an interview with a really highly regarded plumber too, and we're going to talk about this same issue. But it is becoming a problem because these cast iron systems, they don't last forever. And within 40 years, 50 years,
Right.
they are starting to corrode, and then you're going to start getting that odor into the house. You don't know what it is. You can't figure it out.
Well, not only that, Tom, but it's like some years ago, I was on a house and they had been inspected twice by other people, and they said they had foundation issues. And at that time, I called up someone that I knew that was in the foundation business. I said, look, here's my wet zone for the masters. Here's my wet zone for the Jack and Jill. Here's my laundry. And right outside that bedroom window, there's my service riser. And take a look at where everyone's saying the house has moved and sunk on each wing. I said, no, that's the plumbing. He goes, yeah, you're right. The plumbing had failed, reached the end of its useful life, and we're in class 4 soil. The layman's term is it's a sponge, it's clay.
Right.
So all that water was just saturating the soil and
Right.
lifting the house.
Right. Yeah, a lot of people don't realize the problem with, even if you've got piers underneath your home, concrete piers, that that prevents a home from settling, but it does nothing to
For
prevent them
pumping.
from rising.
Right.
And you got the same problems. You've got doors that stick. It could be broken pipe underneath there.
Yep.
It's just, buying a home is a little risky. So having a good professional inspection beforehand is just, in my opinion, that's just a no-brainer. And I'm to the point where I wouldn't even consider pricing. I would do the things that I think this is where I could get stung, and then go with that. And that may not answer your questions, but it gives you something that you can investigate further. Go ahead.
Yes.
Yeah.
One thing comes to mind, and I really appreciate the professionalism of the realtors who really take care of their clients. We have had clients who did not want to get an inspection, and the realtors paid for it on behalf of their client.
Yeah, that's-
They were
that's
actually
smart.
it's very smart, taking care of their clients and taking care of the clients with the proper information. We're not fire alarmists. Here's the information.
Right.
They're going to have a client for life.
One of the first deals I ever did in the business, the buyer I was representing the seller. The buyer agent, who I didn't know, I think he's been around for a long time, they made the offer on the home without an inspection. And I said, no, why is that? I said, they just don't want to pay for when they're comfortable with it. So I had them sign an agreement stating they weren't doing an inspection. Well, sure enough, 3 weeks after the buyer moved into the home, something broke. I can't remember what it was. And they called us and said, we need to get that repaired. And I said, guys, I'm sorry, but that's why we advised you to get an inspection. And that's why we had you sign the statement stating that we had advised you. So trying to cut nickels on the front end can cost you severely on the
We
back
have seen
end.
it so many times.
Yeah, I'll bet.
I had an inspection report sent to me that I sent to one of our members that's on the TREC board. And it only cost them a couple $100, and it was quite a few pages long, maybe 50, 60 pages long, and it was not really. I'm
It's big
trying.
pictures.
I'm choosing my words. Bottom
You
line
get a lot
is,
of big pictures.
the bottom line is, how would the best way to say it? A cheap inspection is not thorough. A thorough inspection is not cheap. It's like if I'm going to go have my truck worked on and that transmission is acting up, I want somebody who knows what they're doing, and I'm going to stay out of their way. I don't need a video and pictures of every single step that he's taking. I know he's got a reputation. I know he's good. He's a master at that trade. I want him in there focusing on my vehicle because he's going to take care of me. And that's our outlook.
And on that note, if I may interject,
Sure.
I've seen a shift with the agent's mindset too, that we're not the bad guys, especially if you get professionals that work with you, that they really sincerely know that we're working with you, we're helping you and your client and help protect you. And I'm seeing this, that
More
there's
professionalism.
more professionalism. They're seeing the value.
Yeah.
And that, if there is something wrong, it's negotiation.
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah.
at least we know and you can
Right.
move on.
Well, maybe it's training too, if they're smart. Closing any one deal isn't worth a lawsuit because you didn't protect your clients in the right way.
Right.
So,
That fiduciary terminology needs to be stressed, and I stress it with the inspectors, whether they're with our company or I'm training new inspectors, or even when I'm doing presentation with realtors on behalf of the inspection process, it is a fiduciary responsibility to the client, to the public.
and one of these things I'm going to say for your benefit, you may not even want to bring this up, but when someone's getting an inspection, if you're the seller of a home, don't follow the inspector around, looking over his shoulder, asking questions. Inspectors want to be able to be focused on what they're doing. And by you're distracting them. And they may not know the answer to some of the questions, and you're trying to find out, well, what does that mean? Is that a big deal? Let them do their job. After the inspection is over, typically, I would imagine this is what you guys do, you'll meet with the client and you'll you'll go through the whole report with them. But following an inspector around is so time consuming, and they got to stop, and their mind's changing. Let them do their job. So, and I assume you guys will probably feel the same way about that.
Very much so.
And case in point, on behalf of the sellers, we've had ones where they went and kept turning off the lights. Well, they knew they had an electrical problem and it would trip the fuse.
Oh, really?
So they're trying to hide it.
Wow.
And another one, I told her, leave the thermostat alone. You have old HVAC units. Let them balance out. And no, she went over there and slapped it from heat to cool, and it tripped out something on the exterior, so she had to call HVAC.
Yeah.
It's like, let us do our job.
Right.
We know what kind of equipment we have, and let's not try to hide anything. Let's just be transparent, because we're going to find it.
Right. Yeah.
It's best not to have the seller there.
Yeah.
Good time for a shopping trip.
Or the agents. I say
the
the agents, look, meet them at the end, and you can all go through the report together.
Right.
Everybody gets, and you don't want the inspector, the seller accusing the inspector of saying something. I mean, it's not recorded. It's not, it's he said, she said, one of those deals. Another thing, if you're selling your home, if you do make repairs and you think, well, I got it covered up, we painted it, and no one's going to see it, no one cares, a good inspector will find that. And then the question comes back, well, what happened there? And you have to explain to them, well, we had some water come in, it penetrated, but we got that fixed, blah, blah, blah. Well, first of all, you're required to report water penetration in a home. But beyond that, the buyer's going to think, well, he didn't tell me that. What else hasn't he told?
Right.
So the golden rule, we've never been sued on something that happened on one of the homes that the sellers didn't disclose. We really stress, disclose everything. If you see something, you don't think it's a big deal, you don't know. That's not your profession. If disclose it, let someone look at it. That's number one priority. And the goal isn't just to sell the home, it's to sell the home without worrying someone's going to come back to you a year or two because they discover something you didn't tell them. So be honest, be very, very transparent, and look big picture on this type of thing.
And it helps the transaction
Well
move
said.
forward.
Yeah.
Here's what it is. Do you like it or not?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Now we're talking about the cast iron pipe. There is new technology that I've seen, and it's kind of like a blow-up balloon. You blow it down the pump.
I'm very well aware.
Okay. Tell me about that.
When I was the chair for the inspector committee for Collin County, I brought in this one company. I'm not going to name them right now. I can give you their number offline. But they came in with a sectional demonstration of what they had done, and it's basically going in, descaling the pipe, putting the balloon in there, and it's an epoxy ejection. I recommended them to our neighbors when they first got together. The wife still had a property in Plano. She was looking at $30,000 for a repair. This company was able to come in, pinpoint where the area was, and take care of it, and it cost her like $3,000.
Okay.
She saved a lot of money.
Thanked me the other day for that.
Yeah.
Yes.
But
I like it.
The one of the plumbers that I'm going to be interviewing said the problem with that is when everything's going horizontal, you're fine. You're not going to have problems. But
It's
when
the vertical.
It's the verticals that they're having issues with making that seal going up, like into the sinks and whatever. Do you think have you heard that's an issue?
I haven't really heard that that's an issue. I can see what their point is. I can see it on a larger property, especially a 2-story, a single story. I wouldn't think too much of. But you still got to, if you're going to have separation where the stack is on the vertical going through the roof, that could lead to some foundation movement. So it's like with any technology, how good is the technician?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Probably true. If it is the case and it does work, that's an industry changer right there.
yes.
Think of every home was built before, say, 1980, with cast iron piping. Every one of those homes at some point is going to be coming to someone to take care of the problem. And I actually thought that was a pretty good company maybe to invest into. So I started
Oh,
asking
it's
some
good.
people, and that's when I heard, well, no, it's good technology. Again, horizontally, vertically, you've got some issues with it. So I'm going to do some more. In fact, I may interview one of those guys, ask him that question.
Okay.
Okay, now how long ago was the mold scare?
I don't actually remember the mold. I remember the CSST so much, but the mold, going back, a lot of it was on the stucco Eaves
Yeah,
product.
right.
Uh,
15, 20 years
15,
maybe?
20 years, yeah. And my biggest concern is not so much that, it's large cases of mold that's on the interior of the house. If it was
Mhm.
on the exterior, yes, you got a problem with the application of the stucco and the East product, and we see
Right.
that all through North
Do
Texas
you
here.
really?
Oh
Okay,
yeah, so
still.
because it's not like in Florida where it's concrete block stucco
Yeah.
CMS. This is concrete wood framing stucco,
Mm-hmm.
concrete slab, or the concrete product being the stucco, where EIFS is a foam
Right.
with acrylic. So it's a ventilation install, and there's much more to it. But it's case in point, someone came in and remodeled an early 19 era home over in Fort Worth. People are living in there. The house was not done professionally. So many things wrong. But when you've got black, green, and white mold in the hallway coming out of the bathroom, and then the
Wow.
crawl space, my mask got knocked off, and I got hit with a
Oh my
mold.
gosh.
And I have been in hospitals where the wings are shut down, and walking through with no face mask on, just walk through, keep my mouth shut, and letting everything filter through the nostrils. And I've been in crawl spaces with stalactite of mold right here in Prosper, and no problem. But that house there, it hit me, and
Yeah.
I have a new respect for that black mold,
Mm-hmm.
because I ended up with like a brain fog, where I had to tell myself I'm going to the workshop to get a screwdriver. I'm going to pick up that screwdriver. I had to keep repeating what I'm doing and get out in the sun and just start getting my body moving.
Mm-hmm.
And I found out later from the doctor that was brain fog, and I was already past the process of where they wanted to put charcoal in me.
Wow.
But the skin rashes and stuff, and we finally found a doctor now 3 years later, and yeah, it's
Yeah.
mold.
It was a huge headline. Mold, people having some bad experiences, and unfortunately, some people took advantage of that, and filed some lawsuits, and maybe they didn't even have the type of mold. It's called Strachybacchus. It's a certain type of mold that is very hard for the body to bring in and deal with. But that was the thing 15, 20 years ago. I think the thing now, I feel pretty sure, is going to be cast iron pipes. If your home was built after, say, 1985, for sure, I would bet you don't have cast iron. You probably don't know what's under your home. Most people don't. Unless you're selling your home or you're starting to get some indication something's wrong up there. I don't know if it's necessary to even go down there, but if you're doing either one of those two things, I would say that's the time to get inspected. You want to deal with these issues on the front end, hoping they go away. They're not going to go away. If anything, it's going to get worse. So address the things on the front end, and you'll have peace of mind later. What else? What are the other big issues you see that you're dealing with that maybe you weren't 10 years
New
ago?
builds.
What's that?
New builds.
New builds? Okay. Tell me why should a realtor bring in an inspector on a new build?
Like I tell them, and I'm just honest, it's not God or the Amish building these homes anymore.
Mm-hmm.
There's such volume and
Yeah.
pressure, and especially during COVID, there was material and labor lacks, and it's just not the same.
Mm-hmm.
So it's your biggest investment. So we don't bash any builder, but we just say you need to take it your own responsibility and get as many inspections outside of a builder
Yeah.
as possible.
Yeah, the builders are going to have the inspections through their city. If they're in a city, they're going to be as sequence of required inspections, and then they've got their superintendent that's supposed to be overlooking. But I'm telling you, the lower priced home it goes, the more issues you're going to have. Have you seen the guy on YouTube that
Matt?
I can't, I don't know
I
his
think
name,
it's Sci-Fi or something, Sci-Hi Inspection. I think it's
No.
based out of Arizona.
but he'll go
He's
through
very
and shows
popular.
these terrible things on a home. You think, how did that even pass an inspection?
Mhm.
He said, now I can't name the company as he's walking by it, showing the first, the company's
Sign.
name.
I think, I think the builders, a couple of builders went after him. I got a periodical. that
Oh,
came
did
through.
they really?
Yeah, so he's
Interesting.
having to tame it down a little bit because,
I wonder
but-
how he could get away with that.
yeah, they came after him because I've got the periodical at home.
Oh,
But I will
Could
tell
you send that to me if you
yeah,
think about
yeah.
it? I'd love to read
Yeah,
that.
and Tom, I've got a $2 million home right now that I'm going back out to do a pre-sheetrock on, and the client's friend is a nuclear engineer. Was on the last nuclear facility built here, and he gave us all kinds of accolades for what we found. But and that's humbling in itself. But even the city found things too. But it's a new build. There shouldn't be this many problems, and it's a $2 million home. So
$2 million in what it used to be.
no,
either.
no, it used to be 500,000.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but it's 4,800 or 4,500. Yeah.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Okay, let's say
So-
someone says, I'm building a home. I'd like you to go out and do your own inspections. How many times would you do it? Like 4 times maybe to go out to the home, or?
Well, our normal process is
Foundation to final.
it's going to be the foundation, pre-sheetrock, and the final. With the 27,000 square foot home that we have going on right now, we're out there every other week.
Okay.
But it's our very high-end
Yeah.
client, and he wants me there every other week
Right.
with a basement.
Right.
So
So you work out a schedule with
Yes.
someone, and it's staggered throughout the entire lifetime of the home. Do you think that, like on a $800,000, $900,000 home, do you think it's wise for someone to go ahead
Yes.
and have you guys overlooking? Okay.
it doesn't matter what size
Yeah,
home, what
it
price
doesn't.
point.
Okay.
We found them from the low ends to the high ends.
Okay.
I could be here for hours telling you
Yeah,
stories.
I'm sure. I bet you've got more stories to
Yeah.
tell, and you probably can't. Obviously, you can't on air, but you can share stories.
Yeah.
The value that you get by hiring a professional outweighs how much you would
Yeah.
pay if there was a problem,
Right.
especially at the beginning, at the origination of the home. And you have more leverage before you sign on that dotted line.
Yeah.
And that brings in also the sewer scope.
Mhm.
Because we're finding it's just not cast iron, it's a new build. So he's putting that down there and they're finding paint, rags.
Shorts.
I didn't
Yes.
think about
People
that.
short.
Yes.
Are you
It's
serious?
a big
I'm
deal.
serious. I'm going the first quarter of this year. I'm going.
I'm not trying to scare y'all.
No,
I'm
no,
just
no. But it's
giving you
Due
things
kind
to
of,
think
diligence.
about.
it's
Do
kind of
your due
comical.
diligence.
It's kind of comical. It's like
Unless
Is
it's
that-
your home.
it's a brand new house. I got somebody's shorts in the sewer line, and I expected
Unbelievable.
like on some you find balls of clay, and
Yeah.
So
Well, I've always been a proponent for not trying to cut corners, let people do their job. Good service, quality service costs money, and I certainly don't mind paying it because I have been stung, unfortunately. We've all been stung at one time
Oh,
along
yes.
the road. So is there any advice? Well, I talked about the advice I would give about don't follow the inspectors around when they're doing it. What other advice would you give? And also the very last thing is, what are all the services you provide? And talk about your certification and all those. You can't just be a septic inspector. Say you're septic inspector, you've got to have the certification. So address those two things if you don't mind.
that's our policy. Like I have a new inspector that's come from another company that's come on board. Does he understand pools? Yes, but does he have a certification from what used to be called the National Swimming Pool Foundation? It's now called Hot Tub and Spa. No, he doesn't. In a court of law, if he's under testimony, what kind of certification do you have? What kind of training do you have?
That's a good point.
Yes. Now,
Very good point.
here in the
You're
state,
protecting yourself with your certifications.
and not only that, but the client and
Yeah.
the broker,
Yeah.
the agent.
Right.
We're protecting everybody. So, like the National Wastewater Treatment Association, NOT is what it's called. That's for our septic. And so unlike other companies too, we went to the extra expense to where we bought equipment, which is a tracker. It's a flushable deal, or we can put it on a tape and we can run it down through the toilet through to where the septic should be. We get out in the country and you may have a 55-gallon drum, or you may just have a pipe going out to the cow field.
Right.
So, but that transponder will tell us through the last point where it stops.
Okay. I've always been told that don't be afraid if you've got the older type, drain field type, rather than a septic system that's called an aerobic. It pumps water out, then a sprinkler and goes out. I have been told, and let me know if this is true or not, some of the older style drain field types where there isn't pressure pushing it out into a sprinkler and spraying it out after it's been treated, there's nothing wrong with those if they have been they haven't been overloaded and clogged. What's your opinion on that?
Okay, well, that's a good question. Here's the facts of the matter. If you're you have different types of soil classifications. Let's keep it simple: sandy, loam, and let's say clay,
Right.
which is your class 4 up here in North Texas for the most part. That is going to get what's called a biomat buildup after so many years, and it's going to clog up. So literally, you need to move your lines over and redo your line.
And the city won't let you do that.
The county health department no longer. Well, each county's a little bit different. If you can do repairs to a point on your lines or on your septic system.
I didn't know that.
But then too, you get into these older systems with the concrete. Your effluent creates a hydrogen sulfide gas, so it's decaying the concrete. Like you see these old lids and they're falling apart.
Yeah.
Well, that's what's happening in the top of the tank where your air gap is
Right.
too. So at one time, the EPA was saying these lateral lines system, regular anaerobic system is what it's called, that they had a useful life of 30 years. Now here lately, they changed it like 35, 40 years.
Okay.
But I have found, case in point, on one house, it was vacant and just had the tank pumped out. They dug up the lid, pumped out the 500-gallon tank. I'm there. It's a small house, 2 bathrooms, and I'm doing my water functional flow, but it's not enough water to fill the to fill the tank and fill the lateral line.
Right.
But why, Tom, was the floor kind of looking funny, wavy?
Yeah.
And I've got a vertical mount HVAC unit in the closet over by the wet zone, but yet by the living room area, yet that whole area is kind of I can see water issues. Well, where did the HVAC dump into? It dumped into the cast iron riser that went to the septic, which told me they knew they had a problem with the septic system backing up and coming into the house.
Oh.
But they had it pumped out, hoping it would pass inspection.
Yeah.
But they had a biomat buildup.
Yeah. Yeah, you may be able to pump it out, but the results of what's been happening over the years stay.
That's where a seasoned inspector who's been around for a while, you got to be an investigator.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a 4-page REO relo on a multi-million-dollar house not too far from here, and they said there's nothing wrong. It was 4 pages, 1 page of information, the rest was fluff. And they said no cracks in the acrylic, everything's good. It was an Eve stucco combination. And I'm looking at an EPS band. I got stalactites where water's been coming through it, go on to the interior, and there's a crack in the master's tub tile, and it goes over to the workout room, and they got a medicine ball in the corner, and I pull it back.
Hiding something?
Oh, yeah. Their floorboard was puckered up like a roll of toilet paper that had been flushed in the
Thank
toilet.
God we've never had a client like that.
But the 4-page relo said there's nothing wrong.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at exterior crack and the hairline crack on the interior.
Yeah. How often do you have to go in and you're requested to re-inspect a home that another company did? Or does that happen very often?
Well, we can get on a home that we're under contract to inspect, and you can tell that there's been another inspector there.
Okay.
You just can't, because sometimes they'll go through and they'll mark the windows. Well, first of all, that's not your property to be marking windows. We had one colleague, he's no longer here in the state of Texas, but he thought he had a water-based marker that was not a water-based marker.
Oops.
Oh, that's funny.
Oh, yes.
Draw a smiley face at least.
Yeah.
And so anyways.
Those were really the biggest points I wanted to talk about. and you've answered all of them. You guys are you're so highly regarded. We have an office of 225 agents here in Keller Williams, and many of those agents use you. And many agents are, they'll send out a note on our private company side, and let's say, can anybody recommend a good inspector? And your name always comes up.
Thank you, Tom.
So I would recommend you, and I have no qualms in recommending you. And you'll always be on the list if someone's asking me for a list of inspectors. Thank you guys so much for coming by. Like I said, I could sit here for another hour, and I bet we could trade stories for another 4 or 5 hours.
Oh, yes.
And
Can I just share our services
Sure.
really quick?
Oh yeah, I forgot to.
That's okay. I'll remind you.
Okay,
Thank
you're
you
the
so much.
salesperson. I
Yes,
forgot.
yes. So Mark is the master inspector, and when we tell the people, the owner's master inspector and trains the inspectors personally. That's really
Okay.
important. You don't get that in a lot of companies, so
Right.
that helps us stand out. But we do offer from new builds to phase inspections, so foundation to final. And anywhere in between that, and warranties. We do septic, sewer scope, zip levels, termite inspections, pool. So if you get, when I tell agents that are new with us or any clients, you don't have to worry about it. If there's a pool, if there's a WDI needed,
Mhm.
we're going to do it. So you don't have to wonder, oh my gosh, did this get done? No, we
Right.
take that off your plate.
And we've had clients with airport hangars too, so we do
Commercial.
too.
Okay.
Commercial.
Yeah, and you can go further with your scope and with your heat sensor.
The thermal
Infrared.
imaging?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thermal
Yeah,
imaging.
well, we have 2 standards on the thermal imaging deal. If you're going to do the whole envelope, that's a $18,000 camera. So that's a higher end. Now, every inspector carries a smaller, less expensive, and they're using it just for scanning as they're
Okay.
going through. Case in point, if I got a 2-story and there's a bathroom over the garage and I'm doing a water functional flow, they may have painted over it. We find it all the time. They paint things over. But when you start scanning, it's going to show.
Mhm.
Because that water's going to hit on that backside, and you're going to get a change of your delta is going to change.
Right.
So you'll get a signature there. Does it see through walls? No. Anybody who says thermal imaging sees through walls is
Yeah.
ignorant.
Yeah.
And
Right.
we're working on new services. Not many do the solar panels. So we're looking at doing that.
Yeah, but
and-
we haven't entailed that yet. So,
no,
but
Yeah.
we're pretty much residential, commercial.
we're always
Yeah.
growing.
Yeah. You're,
One
you're like
call.
us. You're growing, and you're always looking what other
Yeah. can
what
we
other
offer-
offers, what other
Yes.
services can we provide for our clients? It never stops. You got to stay on top of it.
Yes.
How often do you? This is a kind of off the point, but how often do you have to go to your continuing education? Is that
It's,
once a year, or is it continual?
Well, it's every 2 years, 32 hours
Okay.
of CEs. But, if we've got a class that we wanted to take on top of that, I remember my first year or two, just because things are slow and I'm established myself, it was like 170 some CEs I did.
Mhm.
And that's just because it's a
Mhm.
new industry.
Right.
Like any professional getting into, if you're going to be a doctor, a dentist, a realtor, a builder, your vernacular is going to change.
Right.
It has to.
Right.
So you need
Well,
training.
We appreciate you coming over to our office and talking
Thank
to all of
you.
our agents too, because there are a lot of agents that are new in the business and they haven't been hit with all of these things. So it's kind of giving them a warning: be prepared, because this may be coming at you, and this is how you protect your clients.
And we're here to help and train and to be a community.
Right.
And on that note, too, when we have new agents, like, you don't have to know everything.
Yes,
That's why you
right.
hire a team.
Right.
We're here to help you.
Yeah.
And that's our heart. Hopefully that's been conveyed. And
Yeah. Oh, it has, around our office. Well, why don't you give the viewers your email address, phone number, and website?
Go ahead, Anita.
so we're Kissee Home and Commercial Inspections. Our website is Kissee, Kissee, Kiss and 2 E's when I say inspections with an S.com. Our office number is 469-789-1444.
Okay, good. Thank you guys so much for
Thank
coming
you.
over. We'll have another one. I'm sure there will be something else popping up in the new mold or new.
Stay tuned.
Yeah,
folks.
stay
It's a
tuned.
cliffhanger.
Thank you for keeping the viewers.
Thank you, Tom.
Okay. All right.
Thanks so much.